Hey everyone, welcome to another part of demos um, in our how to make memorable demos. Now we're going to talk about how and where to share your demos. I'm going to start with file naming convention and description conventions that you should use on your websites so you can let people know what your demo contains, what your demos contain, and then various outlets where you can share those. Okay? So let's start with file naming conventions. I've said that sometimes you send these demos to people via email. And if you do that, I think it's a rare occasion to do that actually. I think most times people prefer going to your website to look at it. But there are a few companies that don't mind receiving them. And as I've mentioned before, if you make a sort of a cold email, a cold call to somebody, then you might want to include one demo as an attachment, something that's a small file size, and then a link to wherever the rest of your demos are. In that case, wherever you have them stored, wherever you're sending them, I want you to look at the naming convention that I use here so you can see what I'm talking about. The file name starts with your name, so they know who the file belongs to, who the demo belongs to, right? And then you see, next I include, in the first one, in the first example, I say middle grade, that's the genre, right? And then I say fantasy, which is the subgenre, okay? Look at the second one. It says Ron Butler, YA for young adult, and then West African. By there I'm indicating not just the region, but an accent that's used, okay? In the third one, my name, and then followed by romance, that's the genre. I don't put a subgenre here. This time I'm putting M/F, meaning male/female dialogue. So literally by looking at the file name, they know exactly what's going on in this demo. Now you could also include the subgenre of romance. Let's say it's, Regency romance. Instead of the word romance, you could put Regency romance, or you could put sci-fi romance if that's what it is. Okay. You have leeway. There's no real rule for this. I think the standard is just that you want to include your name, the genre or subgenre, and then if there's any interesting thing that else you want to add, like whether it's male-female dialogue, whether there's an accent, anything like that. Just look at these as examples and you can see, what I'm doing and how to do it. Okay, so that's how you would name your files when you create them, when you save them on your own hard drive so you can find them immediately and know what you're talking about, and also if you attach them and send them to somebody. All right? Next, we're going to look at where they should live. Okay? Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but you want them to all be in one place because you're going to have multiple samples. You're not just going to have one, so you need a place where many of them can live. Also, it's much easier to send a link to somebody so that they can go and they can listen to whatever suits their fancy. They might be looking for something very particular when they go to your website, and they can just listen to one, right? This way you also avoid emailing big files, which people often don't like, okay? And most of the time, those, what we're talking about is either a website, or if you have a website already, or just an individual web page. And it can even be something like SoundCloud, if you know what SoundCloud is. Any of these places where you can load up a series of sound files will work. I have a website, I have a couple of pages dedicated to audiobooks, and that's where mine live. I also, before I had a website, I had a SoundCloud page, which I'll show you. And I know people nowadays in voiceover, if you're doing commercial voiceover or video games or whatnot, there's a lot of places where you can have your sound files live that give you sort of a one-pager. Wherever they live, you want to make sure that people know what your name is and how to get a hold of you. And by that I mean your email address. You don't want to put your phone number or your home address on anything that's public out there. But they should have your name and your email address. And also maybe a little bio about you. It can just be a very short paragraph, okay, wherever you send them to. So even if you do something that's just a one page, and I'll show you an example that I did on SoundCloud, you can see what I'm talking about. So that's the format, okay? So let's look at a website. This is a friend and colleague, my friend Suzanne Ellis Freeman, and she recently updated her demos because I went to update for this video, and I saw that she'd updated her site. So let's look. This is a part of many pages on our website. So on this particular page, she doesn't have her contact information because that's on the contact page of her website. But I wanted you to see this mostly because I want you to see what she used as a naming convention, okay? Just take a look. You know, selection number 1 says first-person thriller, and it's an action sequence, right? So we know that the story's being told from the first person. We know that it's a thriller, and we also know that there's some action going on, okay? It's great descriptions. The second choice, third person, and look, she included snarky, which I love, right? Sci-fi. So also too, you know, it gives it a little bit of the flavor of the attitude. You know, as long as you can fit all of the stuff in a description, and it doesn't go on forever, it's good to be specific. Because like I said, sometimes they'll come to your page and they'll be like, I wonder if Ronnie does something. I wonder if Suzanne does something like that. Let me see if I can find anything that matches what the author is describing as the book, and if I could submit Suzanne for it, for example, right? Look at the third choice. Third person, sci-fi action, English RP accent in dialogue. So very clear, like what she's providing, what the story is, what the genre is, and also giving an example of an English accent, right? It includes what she's good at and what this demo provides. I think you get the idea, right? You want the description of the demo to be enough that a person can know what they're listening to, as opposed to just sci-fi, just the genre, right? Or just if it's male-female dialogue, give them some information, right? So they can really know what the details are. It's a good example. All right, here's an example of a one-page deal where I used SoundCloud. This is before I had a regular website. The great thing about this is that it does everything that a producer needs. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be available, right? You know, I can give them this link. They go here. There's a picture of me. If you want to put a picture of yourself in, you'll see over on the right-hand side, right, there's a little bio where I have that I'm a narrator, I'm an actor, where I live, awards that I've won, all those kinds of things, okay? Underneath, it's being hidden by my face here in the screen, but it also has links to, my social media, right? And then if you go over to the left-hand side, you'll see a wonderful thing about SoundCloud. It lets you put in these thumbnails. So I have a thumbnail of, and these are all from actual books that I've narrated, I should say. But even if you didn't actually narrate the book, if the selection is from the book, I say, you know, go ahead and put a thumbnail there, okay? And then the sample, right? And you can see in the first one, it says perfect piece, fiction, literature. The second one is Black Gun, Silver Star, nonfiction, U.S. history, race, and culture. So I've put in the description there. I've got an image of the book, okay? And then I've got biographic and contact information over here on the left. Everything on one page. You don't need more than that. You don't need to be fancy. You know, you don't need to go and spend money to do a whole website. Of course, with things like Squarespace and WordPress, it's very easy to throw together a website by yourself. But bottom line, just have a place where they can go to see what your work is, to listen to it, and also how to get a hold of you. And you can see from Suzanne, she had like 8 or 9. You can't see the full page here, but I have about 9 or 10 samples here. You know, there's no limit on the amount you can have. You can have as many as you want, as long as you're specific about what each of them is, so they can scroll through and see what they want to listen to. All right. Now here's a nice juicy part, right? Where to send it, because of course this is the beginning of your marketing effort. Okay, so there's a couple different ways to go with marketing. You know, the business of audiobooks is much like the business of acting, and those of you that are in voiceover know this, and casting directors. It's really all about relationships. And so what you're trying to do as early as you can is start developing business relationships. Okay, some of that can happen just by doing cold emails and introducing yourself. So if you were going to do that, I would say, well, where do you find the emails of people? Okay, you can look for producers by looking and seeing books that are published on Audible. You can Google the names of producers at different of each of the big publishing houses. When I say the publishing houses, I mean the big five, which is Penguin Random House, Simon and Schuster, Hachette, Harper, and Macmillan. Okay, those are the old established print publishing houses, and they're referred to as the big five. And they have producers, you know, in our parlance, casting directors. Producers and casting directors in audiobooks are the same thing. In each of those publishing houses. And they keep files of people, and they're constantly looking to meet new people. So you can find their email addresses oftentimes online by Googling. Many of them are on LinkedIn. You can reach out to them on LinkedIn. If you belong to SAG-AFTRA and you are embarking on audiobooks, there's actually a SAG-AFTRA audiobook subdivision. We have meetings a few times a year, both in LA and New York, and then we have one national meeting every year. But if you belong to that subgroup, which I would highly recommend you do, you reach out to SAG and say, you know, I want to be in the audiobook group. They have a mailing list. They have a contact list of all the publishers, and you can get that from them. Okay. Another source of getting contact information is the Audiobook Publishers Association. I will probably talk about this at length in our live sessions, but the Audiobook Publishers Association is just as it sounds. It is an association of all the companies that publish and produce audiobooks. Not everyone who publishes and produces is a member, but the majority of them are. And they also allow narrators to be members. I think the price is, I want to say it's like $125 or $135 a year to be a member of the APA. And one of the things that is provided with that membership, of course, is access to the website where publishers and producers have contact information. Okay. Another wonderful thing about the APA, another very useful thing, is that they have periodic socials and mixers in various cities. There was one in Los Angeles just a few weeks ago, and they also have them online. And these events bring together narrators, but they also always at least have one or two producer guests. And it's an opportunity for you to meet people, introduce yourself, exchange business cards, and follow up with them later on. The APA also has what they call speed dating, and it used to be only in person, but now they do it several times a year, and it's through lottery. You apply for it, and when you are chosen, you get to have a 5-minute or 10-minute session online with the head of the APA, while anywhere from 20 to maybe 40 producers are listening in. And you give a pitch about yourself. You talk about your experience or your journey in audiobooks, where you're at, and what kind of books that you would like to narrate, and what's specific about you. And this is really why I impress upon everybody that it's important to have an elevator pitch, to be able to talk about yourself for 1 minute to 2 minutes in a very concise and succinct way, to give people things to remember about you and also to sell yourself. So the APA offers these speed dating events several times a year now, virtually, and it's a wonderful way to meet. It's a wonderful way to meet people. The APA also has a diversity initiative. So for those of you that identify as a marginalized group, whether it's neurodivergent, LGBTQIA+, any kind of racial minority, they offer a new narrator workshop that you do not have to be a member for. Okay, you just go to audiopub.org, that's audiopub.org, and look under their diversity initiatives, and under that link, there'll be a new narrator workshop that they do 3 or 4 times a year, where you get to attend an event that is a panel for about an hour, and then they split into groups. This is all virtually, and you'll be split into a group with a producer as the lead, who you will then read for and get feedback from. It's an amazing opportunity. Okay, so those are the many opportunities for connection and relationship building that you can get through the APA. Another opportunity is ahabtalent.com. This is run by Penguin Random House. It's a division of Penguin Random House, And you can go to ahabtalent.com and create a profile where you can upload demos and also fill out a questionnaire where you can show and tick off what your strengths are, accents, languages, age range, character vocalizations, all these kinds of things. And that profile exists for Ahab Talent. And when producers at Penguin Random House are looking for people, they go and they use Ahab Talent. Also, it's spreading to other producers beyond Penguin Random House, so it's no longer just in-house. It's a great way to get found. Oftentimes, producers will send you auditions based on people they find there, but also they post general auditions, and so you can go there a few times a week, and if you see something that you're right for, you can audition for it and upload it. That's another opportunity. Clubhouse. If you're familiar with the app Clubhouse, it's a drop-in sort of conversation and sort of staging integrative group conversations. And Penguin Random House sporadically, I don't know how often, I want to say at least once a month, but they have a Clubhouse meeting where if you're on the app, you can just drop in and they pick people randomly to come up, quote unquote, on stage. It's audio, but to come up on stage and actually audition. You read a 2-minute piece. The producers from Penguin Random House give you feedback, and it is perfect audition opportunity. There's also other what they call clubs on Clubhouse that are geared towards audiobook narrators. If you sign up on Clubhouse, just do a search in their clubs directory for audiobooks, and there's a lot of community there. There's a lot of peer coaching, and there's a lot of free coaching that people do once a week. And it's a really great place to network with other narrators and to meet other narrators as well as producers. And lastly, there's referrals and introductions, right? Some of the best ways to meet people is to leverage the relationships you already have, like the one you're building now with me, right? I may reach out to you and say, hey, I know you can do a South African accent. I just had a producer send me something that I'm not right for because I can't do it. But I told her I know somebody that's got a great South African accent. I've actually done that before. This is a really cohesive and friendly community, and people refer people all the time. So building relationships with your peers is another way to get your demos out there. And that's it. That is how and where to send your demos.